All right, kids. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Did you guys have fun tonight? Yeah. There was some really good volleyball, and I know that was some of the best volleyball our team's seen, right? Yeah. Some really good teams, right? Some really good competitions. So thanks for coming all the way out here. And it was a really special night because we got our good friend Rich Lambourne here with us. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Rich Lambourne won the gold medal with, what is that, 2000?
2008.
2008.
2008.
Right.
Beijing, China.
Beijing, China. Can you imagine going all the way to China to play? And one of the reasons I wanted him to be here with us was we were talking a little bit about, you know, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing from when you were 11, 12. How many 11-year-olds here?
Wow.
How many 10-year-olds here?
10 years old.
How many younger than 10?
Hey, right. There she is.
How many 12-year-olds? Okay, so if you could go back and tell your 11, 12-year-old self something to help yourself about volleyball in your journey, what would that be?
Well, first of all, I didn't start playing until I was 15, so you guys already have years and years of a head start on where I was, so that's encouraging from the get-go. As I was thinking about that question, I think the best thing that I could come up with is to learn how to be a good teammate. Right? That sounds kind of generic, and maybe it's meant to be a little bit because there's not a right answer on how to do that, but in my career, I think I was a pretty good team player, meaning I wasn't sort of selfishly motivated, which is important, I think, in a team sport, but I wasn't maybe necessarily always the most encouraging of my teammates, if that makes sense. So finding a way to succeed within your team while kind of bringing the level of your teammates up is a really important part of playing in a team sport. For those of you who don't like to do that, there's golf and tennis and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's important for us in a sport where we have 6 people on the floor at any given time to be aware of keeping everyone at as high a level as we possibly can.
Yeah, I had the wonderful opportunity to play with Rich on 6-man beach team.
If you can consider that volleyball.
Yeah, it was pretty high level. You know, one of the things that we talk a lot about is trust and responsibility.
Yeah.
That you have to know your responsibility at any given time and during a play, and then you have to trust everybody to fulfill that responsibility and stay in your lane. And one of the wonderful things I experienced playing with you is how much command you take of the court in terms of handling the ball. That is your job, and we are not to touch that ball.
Well,
talk a little bit about that, like the libero?
That's a nice segue into your next question, which is traits of successful teams I've been on, right? Which Magnum was one of those teams, fortunately. And that's an excellent point. One of the hallmarks of any successful team I've been fortunate enough to be a part of is everybody identifying their role on that team and then fulfilling that role, really embracing that role and doing it to the best of their ability, which I think is what J.O.'s talking about a little bit. I was a libero, so that was my job, is to kind of take control of the back court. I didn't get to hit or serve or do any of the kind of flashy things, so I had to contribute in the way that was designed for me to contribute within my team. In college, I played outside hitter, so I had a little bit of a different role, but I wasn't a big offensive contributor on that team either. I was just a ball control guy. But I really tried to embrace that as much as possible. I wasn't, you know, a guy that was like, set me more, you know, always demanding the ball. I just did the little things to help our opposite, who was a stud, and our middle, who was a stud, really carry us. And we were lucky enough to win a national championship doing that. Another hallmark of successful teams is that even the guys who aren't playing, even the girls who aren't playing all the time, are finding ways to contribute, whether it's in practice every day. The best teams I've been on have been kind of stacked 1 through 12, or however many people you have, you know, like We didn't just have these 6 guys that were good and then a bunch of people who didn't belong. Those people were pushing us day in and day out in practice.
Right. I think what I've noticed, because my daughter is also on our team, right, and I've noticed this is the first time where for her she's like, oh, I might not start every game, because the competition rises once you're in clubs. So I know that's a lot of what these young players are experiencing for the very first time.
Right.
Is that kind of competition within the team.
Yeah, well, it's a big part of team sports, like I'm saying. You know, if you want to be the person all the time, maybe team sports aren't for you. But if you're in this team environment, how do I contribute to the well-being of my team in any role that the coach lays out for me? Now, that may fluctuate throughout the year. You may improve, you know, especially you guys are so young. Like I said, you're 3 and 4 years ahead of when I even started the game. You know, I started as
What was your first sport?
Baseball.
Baseball.
So really, that's probably the thing I would tell my 12-year-old self
movement,
is
tracking the ball.
stay with baseball. No.
No, but I mean, there's a lot of things that transfer over if you're, you know.
There's some
playing
similarities,
infield
yeah. Yeah, I teach that defensively. None of you guys play softball, I'm guessing? Oh, you do? Okay, good. I like it. So this would actually translate to you guys, like defensively, you know, you're taught in baseball to start low and come up to the ball. I teach that a lot, especially, you know, I coach some guys on the beach now. And on the beach, a lot of...
Tell them who you coach.
I coach Jake Gibb and Taylor Crabb, if any
Top
guys are.
in the world right
Jake's
now.
a 3-time Olympian, as a matter of fact, yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, we talk about that starting with your hands low because this is a quicker movement to go up. So there is some carryover from that sport, certainly.
So one of the things for you was passing, right? And under pressure situations, which I think when you're young, every single serve seems like a pressure situation.
Yeah.
What are you going through in your mind? What are you telling yourself, or what are you making sure not to tell yourself while the server is in motion coming at you? What are you putting in your mind?
One of the things that we got into a lot was routine. Whether that's, you know, your serving motion. There's a lot of instances where we want a routine to be in place on the volleyball court. But as it pertained to passing, you know, we worked with a sports psychology guy named Ken Ravizza. And one of his things was making every action look just like every other action. So that you're not thinking at 24 all, there's so much pressure here. You're just thinking, here comes another serve, and this is how I prepare for it. Whether it's an exhale, you know, again, there's no right answer. It's just what's comfortable for you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to exhale. I'm going to clear my mind. I have some mantra that I want to say.
Tell us, what was Rich Lambourne's routine?
For me, it was an exhale, and I would almost like, you know, if there was like a song stuck in my head that I'd listened to pre-game or something, I would just kind of be singing that to just kind of cool myself out a little bit.
So gold medal point in China, your Blondie is just going crazy in your
Blondie,
brain?
yeah. Yeah.
It was a song.
You've seen my playlist then.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, just, again, it's just kind of, it's individual to everybody. Whatever works for you to calm yourself down. One of the things that our guy would tell us is find something consistent that you can look to as a visual cue to sort of reset yourself every point. Whether you walk to the end line, you know, you turn around, just tap the end line and come back in and reset yourself. Whether you look at the pole over here, you know, there are things that are consistent indoor on every court. Even if you're not in this gym, you're in another gym. But I can use those cues to sort of even myself out before every play. Because he was actually a baseball guy, so a lot of his sports psych input was baseball related as it pertained to pitchers, you know.
Right.
Hey, you don't sort of, you know, he used a different word, but crap in your circle, meaning the pitching mound, right? If you're not ready to play, step off and step back in when you're ready. So, you know, there's somebody blowing a whistle on us. We don't have the luxury of starting whenever we want,
Right.
but we can go through that sort of little mental checklist quickly so that we can get ourselves ready for when that serve's coming. And then it's just a matter of getting as much information as I possibly can, right? I'm watching the guy or the girl toss the ball. I'm watching it come out of their hands so that I'm processing as much information as possible before I make that decision as to what to do.
Right,
to pass it.
And it's interesting because what I also hear you saying is that it was a process of calming down and
Yeah.
getting into a state of calmness because I wasn't a great passer. I was a middle blocker, but when I would pass, I would often like turn to an aggressive feeling, like I want to go get this, right?
Right.
But you're saying to actually come into a calmness, to take in everything that's happening around the server's motion and to pick up the rotation on the ball and that kind of thing.
Well, that becomes an interesting debate perhaps because you like an aggressive mentality, like I'm not just going to wait for things to come to me, I'm going to be proactive. But maybe a better way to say it is I want the lack of tension. Okay, so that's one of the things, like when I'm teaching particularly younger people about passing, oftentimes if we start getting in that mindset, I gotta go get this, or this is an important point, there's all this tension in my arms and my body in general, right? Which has to be released in order for me to move, because this isn't my body at its peak ability to move if I'm all tense, right? If I'm nice and loose and flowy, I can move quickly, right? So that's maybe a better way to say it is I want to achieve that lack of tension. I want to be sharp here, calm, and I can still have some aggressive mindset in there that I'm going to be proactive in going to get this ball, but I have to have the lack of tension in my body, and that starts in the mind, I think.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Rich?
Can we get more food?
Yeah. And they're like, you're married. She's like, yeah, let's get some more food. Any of you guys have any questions? Any of you that might play libero or not have any questions for Rich? Yes.
What's the most difficult part? This may sound like a weird answer, but for me the most difficult part was there's very little way to overcome your mistakes. I mean, I'll give you an example. If I'm an outside hitter and I shank the ball over there, my setter can still set me and I can score on that and sort of redeem myself. You know what I mean? If I'm the libero, I don't get to hit or anything like that. So if I make that mistake, I have to rely on everyone else to sort of make up for my mistake, which is difficult mentally, I think, right?
Yeah.
Because as an outside hitter, that's easy to.
Stakes.
Yeah.
Every pass has much higher stakes.
You become almost like a referee in the sense that people don't notice you unless you're making mistakes.
Well, and that's one thing that I noticed about playing with Rich is that I never played with someone who was as meticulous as him. You guys know what that word means, meticulous? He's so precise about every single thing he does, every movement, this routine that he's saying. I used to go, what is he doing? Who does he keep walking and touching the line for? But it was this routine, and after a while I started to realize, wow, Rich is meticulous about everything that he does on the court, and it makes sense because your touches mean so much for the team. Yeah, I mean, they're called free balls, right? Because they should be free. That should be free ice cream for us that we handle, right? And so there's a high attention to detail that's necessary, especially in that position because, I can't afford to make mistakes because I don't have any way to make up for those, right?
You said you were an outside hitter in college, but do you like a libero or outside hitter? What's your most favorite position?
I loved playing outside hitter just because you're sort of more involved in all the skills, but I'm very grateful. The position of libero didn't exist when I was in college, back when we were in college.
No, that's right.
So I'm glad that it came into existence because I wasn't quite the athlete that it took to.
That's interesting. So you were one of the first crossover.
Well, Sullivan was the first guy,
Right.
Eric Sullivan.
UCLA.
UCLA, and he's the assistant coach now at Texas.
I played against him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
UCLA with Nygaard, and he was that team.
Yep.
So
So
it's
it's
6 Olympians on that team.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wong and
I
Metzger.
counted
And,
them.
yeah.
I think there were 7 with him actually, because the starting 6 were all Olympians.
Right. Yeah. So I liked playing outside hitter, but I came to love libero because it gave me the opportunity to compete with the national team and play for the USA, which I wouldn't have had if I would have still been an outside hitter. Because between us here, I was pretty medium.
Yeah, that's incredible. great. So, one of the things I take from that is, Rich was continually finding a way to contribute, which goes back to what you were talking about before, is that you had just adapted to find a way to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of I was lucky enough to sort of have the libero type skill set. Like I said, in college, I wasn't a big offensive contributor to our team. I was more of a libero-esque player that just had to rotate around into the front row in the first place. But it was really a conversation with my coach a couple years into playing libero that was pivotal for me, because I would go play overseas and play with guys who were medium at outside hitter and probably making more money just by nature of that position, and it would drive me nuts, because I would be thinking, like, I'm better than this guy, and I could, be doing all this stuff. But my coach said, look, your goal is to go play overseas to be good to play for the USA during the summertime. So you really need to you need to forget about the outside hitter thing and learn to embrace the libero position in order to be good for us. Right. Be the best you for us, right? And that was an important conversation. I mean, if you want to get biblical with it, you can't serve two masters kind of thing, right?
For sure.
And so that was, again, goes back to knowing your role on a team and being able to fulfill that role to the best of your ability. And I had to kind of get my mental game right, forget about all this distraction over here with I could be playing outside hitter, and just really dive into the libero role.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Did I play competitively sand and indoor? I've gotten my AAA rating a couple times. I don't know if that's considered competitive or not. I thought it was back in the day, but my AVP record is 0-2 lifetime. So I don't know how competitive that makes me. I mostly played, the majority of my career was all indoor, but now I just coach on the beach, and I'm lucky enough to fool my guys into thinking I know what I'm talking about out there.
Are you thinking about, like, training-wise, like, did it help? Yeah, training. I think a lot of them, because especially for these girls, beach is such a bigger thing. It's never been bigger than in your guys' era, the beach game.
Yeah.
The only kids that went and played beach when we were growing up were the kids that really, really wanted it. And I think I speak for both of us when to tell you, playing on the beach is a secret to being a great indoor player. And it's because instead of touching the ball once every 6 people, you touch the ball once every other person.
Yeah. So
you're touching the ball so much more. And you have to learn to pass. You have to learn to set. You have to learn to block. You have to learn to play defense. So that's why beach is such a fantastic way to grow your game. For sure.
Yeah, was that the real question? Because I absolutely encourage everyone to play as much beach as they can for those exact reasons. There's nowhere to hide out there, so you're always involved in the game. And when I played in high school and when I played in college, summertime was all about playing on the beach. Unfortunately, with the national team, our competition season was during the summer, so we never got to get down to the beach much. But yeah, I love that game, and I think it's an enormous tool to use to get better at indoor and at beach, which is a viable option for everyone as well.
Yeah. Any more questions? All right, guys, let's give Rich a round.
Thanks, guys.